Okay, I've thought about the speaking, and I've had public speakers on the podcast before, obviously different experts in their
Yes.
fields and so on. And it's quite a thing to break through into that space. It's like being an artist, or being a musician, or being a podcaster. It's a very competitive space by the sounds of things, and you've got to grind, and you've got to go and do small little speaking gigs here and there before you get into the big stages. The people that we all follow on Instagram. It must be it, a really quite a long term view that you've got to take if you want to be a speaker. Or that's just how I'm seeing it from the outside. Maybe I might be wrong.
It's so cool that you asked me that question, because my experience has been the complete opposite. So I was born here in KZN. I moved up
Hmm.
to Johannesburg and I've done business and life up there. And I came back to KZN just last year. And as a part of me just getting into network, seeing who's who in the zoo and getting to know a couple of people, I joined the PSA. And I then became the deputy president of the chapter. So I'm part of like the leadership team that runs it. And my experience as a speaker has always been the opposite. So I've always been a speaker. I've always spoken. But for me, it's just an expression of my expertise. I was never thinking that I'm building a professional speaking business and I've got to get gigs on these global stages. Being in this association is certainly switching my awareness onto maybe wanting to build out a business that's targeted towards that. But I've always seen it as the opposite way around. There's a really cool guy in Cape Town. You may know Pierre Duplessis in Cape Town, and he runs a brand called Be Brave. And I love he put a
I follow
message out.
him. I'd actually love to have him on the show. Mm,
Oh, I'll link you. I'll link you with Pierre. He's yeah, we've been connected for a
mm,
few years.
mm.
And he put a message out a couple of months ago around speaking, and he had a microphone as the image, and he said, "Are you a speaker or are you on a mission to get a message out there?" It wasn't those exact words, but that was the message that landed for me so much, is that I don't want to be known as a speaker, but I want to be known as someone with a strong mission in this world. And then one of the avenues through which that is brought into fruition is speaking. But there's many other avenues. So yeah. Hmm.
Mm. I love that because there's rootedness in that, because it can be quite easy if you're doing it for a speaker's sake. It can be quite easy then to you don't get booked, or things take a bit longer than you think they should, and you get attached to these sort of materialistic external justifications. And then when it doesn't work out, then it's easier to throw in the towel. Whereas I suppose if you're rooted in a mission and a purpose, and there's a level of fulfillment that comes with that, then it becomes quite easy to stick at it for the long term. Really, I think maybe that's something that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's so much about how I do life and business, is that inner like self-awareness, values, alignment, and then in living that 100%, then the right opportunities come, whether it is a speaking gig or a facilitation or a workshop or whatever it is that you want to do with a client. So yeah, at least it's the way I've been doing it, Clinton.
Mm. What's your mission then? If you've got a mission
Oh,
and a message, what is your mission?
I think that the world has become a very noisy place. I think that there's just way too much that the system needs to process more than ever in the history of time. And it's so easy to build one's life almost as a consequence of following someone else's mission. So my mission is to help people take their autonomy back, to tap into their inner power and inner knowing, and then live in alignment with that. And the only way to do that is to clear the noise and the clutter. Hmm.
Yeah, you said that. You said you help break through the noise. You help people break through the noise and the clutter, which, like you said, it's a very noisy time where there's lows. I mean, everybody's spoken at length about social media, etc. So we're not going to go down that route because it's been covered many times by many people. But can you give me an example then of where you've had to cut through the noise? Perhaps a personal example that you draw on where you had to take your own advice, or perhaps that own personal experience has led you to then be able to impart wisdom on other people who might be in a situation similar to you.
Yeah, Clinton, I've been running one business for 18 years and then this consultancy now for 6 years. And there've been so many opportunities to practice that over the years. And for me, like clearing that noise and that clutter is just about slowing down and getting quiet enough to reconnect with your values, what aligns for you. And there's so many examples that come to mind, I guess, in kind of starting this business independent of our agency. I there's a tendency when you have relationships with clients, when you become known for one thing. So the backstory is I've run a brand and marketing agency for 19 years, and I've been known as, and my expertise as a brand and marketing strategist. And then our agency implements that for clients. So it's an interesting one when you become known for something and when the market asks that of you. And then in starting this consultancy, which really shifts more into the people development space, and the branding becomes more of personal brand, and the marketing becomes more of mindful marketing, and the coaching work becomes a lot of working with founders, entrepreneurs, or individuals to clear that noise and connect with that inner sense of being. So for me, in starting up, I could have really stayed with the noise of what the world was asking of me and what I had become known for. But it was really about slowing down and quietening down enough to stop and say, actually, I have the luxury and the joy and the gift of choosing who I am and where and how I want to add value in the world. So it was about an intentional stop and establishing this business. And of course, doing it in a respectful manner with my existing client base and my networks and general people in my life who have boxed me in one space, and bringing them along for the journey quietly, gently, to say, actually, there's so much more. There's so much more that I can do. And this is where I'm shifting it into. So there was definitely that opportunity. Clinton, another example comes to mind. I have to tell you, it was such an exciting time for us. Hey, in 2010, South Africa hosting the World Cup. And in our marketing agency, we got this
Hmm.
huge tender to do public relations for a huge international nonprofit organization. And I remember thinking, public relations is such a specialized thing. Like, we don't do public relations, but we do marketing in general, of which PR is one pillar of it. And jeepers, that whole need to stop and have the courage and the faith to say, thank you for affording us the contract. And we even tried it for a couple of months, but going back to client and saying, this is so specialized and such an expertise, we'd be doing you a disservice if we took it on, but rather say, this is what we can supply, and rather work with someone else in supplying this to you. A couple of things.
Hmm. That's something going back to what you said earlier. There's a word that sticks out to me, which is agency. We all have
Mm.
we all have the agency to be able to make a decision, and I think that's what separates people who get closer to the life that they want to live versus the people that don't. It doesn't necessarily have to be about money, but to have the agency to be able to say, this is the decision that I want to make because this is the direction that I want my life to go in, for whatever reason that might be. And then we always, regardless of the situation and the circumstances, have the agency to make that decision, at least make the very first decision to change course, to stop. But I can imagine it must also be quite a nerve wracking and uncomfortable feeling, pivoting, stopping, changing directions, especially if other people have put you in a box, so to speak. It must be quite easy to then also put yourself in that same box and identify with that person, that version of you. So, how did that whole process pan out when you had to then make that change to an extension or an evolution of your existing self?
Yeah, I think it's still panning out. I think it's a journey and it's a process. I don't know that you ever land and that it's done, and you go, whoa, it's done, tick the box. Um, I
Yes.
think, I often say I'm such a super communicator. Like, whether it's in any form, verbal, written, I love communication. And I love crystal clear communication. And I think that's the foundation to solving all problems, personally, professionally, everywhere in life, is just being able to communicate, like distill your message down to the core of what you're trying to say, and then communicate that in the way that the person you're communicating with would work for them, so it lands. So for me, it was really about being intentional around bringing, in the context of business, bringing clients along with me on the journey, and then also leading by example. So showing them what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, what I'm speaking on, offering aspects of it to them so they can touch, taste, feel, see, get an experience of it, and decide for themselves if it still feels aligned for them and if they do want to still continue working with me. So that's been very nice. That's how I've managed those shifts and those changes in life, by really bringing people along with me in a meaningful way, but in a transparent way, so they can understand where it's coming from. You know, whether it's business, whether it's personal, at the end of the day, in business, people want to do business with people. In our personal lives, we want meaningful connections with other human beings. So if we distill that down just to the basics of human connection, whether we're connecting to close a deal, whether we're connecting to shift mindsets, whether we're connecting to implement a strategy, it's still two human beings connecting. So at the foundationary basic level of that, it's just clear communication on this. And it seems to have worked. Seems to have worked.
Well done. So communication, right? Before we communicate, obviously there has to be thought, which means there has to be some kind of consciousness. There needs to be some kind of reflection and evaluation of a situation internally, for then to be able to process and speak with the clarity that's required to then deliver the message or to take an action. So how does that how did that feel? Was it a feeling where you decided, I'm going to go in this direction? And it could be specifically with the shift that you've spoken about already in your career. It could be micro shifts or micro pivots into different areas of business. Can be anything. Is this something that is a feeling that you get like in your gut, and then you decide, I need to investigate this further, I need to go, what happens there before you then get to the end game where you now are clear and concise and you're communicating to the people?
I love that you use the word feeling already in asking your question, because there's certainly an aspect of that. So I'll take you back a little bit just to um, take our viewers and our listeners on the story, so there's context and it makes sense. So always been the marketing strategist, and then the digital marketer, and then the personal brand builder, and being very intentional about putting content out and being everywhere and being seen everywhere to position yourself in a certain way. And then started feeling the overwhelm of the digital space and what it was doing to people's sense of overall health and wellness, and then their mental health. And then, of course, COVID hits. And I'm doing all my coaching with my clients online. I coach entrepreneurs on different development programs and business owners. And I'm being asked by a client to work with an entrepreneur to pull out and work on a marketing strategy. And I'm sitting with the entrepreneur, and they are having a panic attack in front of me because they don't know if they're going to have a business in 6 months or 12 months. And here we're trying to build out a strategy for that. So there was a pivotal moment, one coaching session, where I thought, I know I can't be doing this now. I know this isn't the right time. I know we need to be going deeper and taking care of the whole human being behind this business before we can implement on anything that this business needs. So that is a practical thing that happened, where a lot of the work that I'd been doing more in my personal life around wellness started to then become infused in every coaching session that I would run. So that started to very naturally, organically happen. The other thing was, Howard, I know you said you've had hundreds of conversations around digital marketing and social media, and you don't want to go there, but I think it's such a prominent space where our shifts are coming from in life right now, digital. And so I've been the digital marketer, and then decided on this whole concept of holistic wellness and mental minimalism as foundations to everything that I'm going to be doing. So I shift the focus then of my one-on-one work that I'm doing with business owners and entrepreneurs, where we'll coach on what you need to do from a strategic perspective. But underneath that, that's underpinned by your sense of well-being and how you are doing so that you can actually go and implement in all of this. So that starts to happen. And then I decide to take back my control and my autonomy around the digital space and really moved into mindful marketing. So Raksha, I personally decided to come off all social media platforms, put everything on hold completely, and then just feel into, what has this done for me? Why have I been there? To what end? What's the objectives? And by not being there, how does that make me feel? What does that mean for me when I'm out there in my business networks, in my social circles, in my life? I decided to do a gentle reintroduction a year ago back into only LinkedIn. And that again was that work, that foundational work is know thyself, right? Truly get to know yourself. And what works for Clinton works for Clinton, but that won't necessarily be what works for Aksha. So to fully own that and be comfortable with what's working for Raksha, if I do decide then to go back just onto LinkedIn, having a sense of why. And a lot of that, I have to say, Clinton, came from feeling. It comes from intuition and feeling and going where I am feeling the flow in the space. So it's been a bit controversial for me with my clients because it's been marketing for so many years, now shifting it into mindful marketing, where I'm not saying the platforms are bad. They are brilliant. They serve a purpose. There's a sense of community and connection that people need in this world that they get from there. But about taking the control back to say, I will decide to what extent I will be here, play here, interact here, and then feeling a sense, truly tapping into how that affects my state of health and wellness as a result. Hmm.
What did that feel like, stepping away from social media when you first cut cut yourself from it completely? What did that feel like? Was there a feeling of withdrawal, of FOMO? Was there an element of guilt, like I'm not putting my best professional foot forward? People are not going to find me. What was that? What was screaming at you when you decided, okay, enough is enough?
There were so many things. I had done 2 seasons or campaigns in my life, and I had become known as the gratitude girl for a long time. I mean, on Instagram, I used to run a gratitude post a day, 1/365, 2/ like literally a gratitude post every single day, and built a huge kind of
Mm,
awareness and personal brand around gratitude. And then there was that side of things. And, and to step away from that there's habit. We know the science of habits and habit forming, and how I needed to see for myself how much of my life I was living in order to create a post, or how much of it I was living because this was the organic flow of me living my life. And was I thinking in the organic flow of living my life, or was I thinking in a post, like constructing a post? It's ridiculous how infused that way of being
was
becomes.
it orchestrated? Mm,
Yeah. And so that's what happened. Is at the start, I had this absolute, oh, my audience is going to feel like I've completely dropped them. Friends, family, colleagues, network, business context, because I just decided one day and I completely dropped. And so there's that side of things. And the algorithms, obviously, everyone's going to forget me now because they're never going to see me. Then also, I'm not watching what everybody else is doing. So I'm out of the loop of what's happening in my networks, in the world, in people's lives. And I really tested myself on that, because I got to that point where I really don't need to know what Clinton's having for breakfast. I really don't need to know what you did on the weekend. I don't want to know that stuff anymore. It's taking up too much of mental space here. It's clutter. It's causing clutter for the stuff that I really want to work on. So there was a lot of that in the first couple of months. There was like, ooh, and it wasn't about me. It was about the world and my network. What are they going to think that I've stepped out? Are they going to think I've fallen out of the loop? I don't believe in marketing anymore. And as that went on, I also started nomading a lot across South Africa from 2020 during COVID, living in Cape Town, living in Ballito, back in Johannesburg. So I would use social media a lot to tap into communities. I lived in Hart Bay and Simons Town for a bit. I would use it intentionally to tap into communities here in Ballito, etc. And so that also started to happen when I stepped out of it. Like, oh, I don't actually know what's happening here anymore in this town around me. Where are people meeting? What's the latest place to eat at? Are there people walking on the beach or doing yoga on the beach that I don't know about anymore? So it was fascinating. It was a real live experiment for me to see the power that those platforms hold in my life, why I use them, and whether or not I do want to continue using them. So that's a little bit of the journey that started to happen. And it has been life-changing. It has been phenomenal to choose and decide how I want to reintroduce myself back into there and how and where I want to play.
Well done. Because I mean, a lot of people say and threaten that they're going to go off social media and then they never do. You always see them, oh, that person viewed my story, but they said that they were going to do a fast, a tech fast. And then there they are. So well done for being the example, firstly. Secondly, when you came back, so you reintegrated, let's say LinkedIn was your first port of call, your first re-entry into that space. How did you find it? Did you feel like it took a while to get that profile going, that footprint again, or did it just carry on, regular service as usual?
Yeah, I think I've always been very intentional with human connection and relationships and people in my life and keeping people close. So even though I may not have been commenting on everybody's latest Facebook post or Instagram post, it became a more intentional body of work around retaining those connections. So off social media, for the people, business and personal, that mattered, those connections were retained. So when I introduced myself back onto LinkedIn, it didn't feel like there was this big hiatus and suddenly this reintroduction. Oh, remember me? Hi, this is who I am and what I do. But it's not an organic platform, right? So we're also playing with the algorithms. So I don't know if it's showing my content to my people, or I don't know if I'm seeing my people's content as
Mm,
much. So there is a little bit, there is still the digital marketing strategist in me that knows to use the right hashtags, that wants to tag the right people to bring them back into my fold. So there was a little bit of that I did at the start, but it started to flow really nicely after that. And I watched myself in how I did that and watched myself also in what I teach, right? I run the digital marketing masterclasses. I teach entrepreneurs the foundations of how to do this stuff on different development programs. Um, so there's almost like an obligation to live it, but I also want to live these are the rules of how it works. But the gold is in knowing yourself and knowing how much of that you're going to apply in your life or not. So yeah, it's been an intentional return, and it seems to have the flow has come back with both the foundational strategic knowledge that I have, implementing that, and then also maintaining real human connection.
lovely, lovely. I love that. I want to pivot slightly to pivoting again versus perseverance because as an entrepreneur, I've got two personal training studios, and then the podcast, you've got your gigs that you've been running that you've already alluded to. But I think all entrepreneurs can relate. There's this journey of highs and lows, right? It's a roller coaster. So there's going to be curveballs that come your way. There's going to be times when you just feel like it's not worth it. There's going to be times when you feel like you're not good enough. There's going to be other times when you feel like you're the king or queen of the world. And that's just the nature of the game. But it can be quite difficult to separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, and decide in the tough times, is that feelings of despair that might lead to you deciding actually it's time to pivot when one should actually just be persevering. And then on the other side of perseverance is what you're looking for. How challenging, number one, is it? And how does one navigate through that time, being able to decipher between when is it time to pivot and when is it necessary to persevere along their journey of entrepreneurship?
You know, I love the question, pivot or persevere. Underneath both of those, irrespective of whether you're pivoting or persevering, first, we need courage. So first of all, something isn't feeling right, something isn't going right. Should I change? Should I continue? First of all, we need to have the courage to truly look at what is going on here. And often people just like, head in the sand and either make this decision out of what just feels right now. Unfortunately, there's a bit too much of a strategist inside me from the work that I do with my incubators and accelerators. And I was around as an entrepreneur within an incubation program when Eric Ries wrote The Lean Startup, and those lean startup methodology and those principles are so deeply ingrained in me. So I think, and what's so nice for me is that the way that we started the agency 19 years ago is so different to the way people get to do it now. And what's wonderful is when we started it all those years ago, it was, I'm great at this. I'm going to go out there and tell the world that I'm great at this, and then they must buy it. And that was the way we did it all those 19 years ago. Now, I'm great at this. Let me go out to the world and tell them that I'm great at this, but let me listen to whether or not this is something that they want or need. So there's still very much that lean methodology in, it's fine that I may be good at selling a product or a service, but is this something that the market actually needs? So I think that's the answer to the question for me when it comes to pivot or persevere. I mean, for us, if we were still delivering brand and marketing services the way it was all those years ago, I mean, in the time that we've run an agency, we've had digital marketing come in and completely change the landscape. So if we were still selling traditional marketing to people, we would never have been where we are today. And then we've also had AI that's come in and shifted the whole marketing and digital landscape entirely in the last 4, 5, 6 years. So there's definitely a need to pivot. So sometimes the market will give you indicators that this has changed. The landscape has changed. And if you don't change, you're going to be left behind. So that's the time where it's pretty obvious to pivot. And then sometimes when we have the courage to question, why is this feeling uncomfortable? Or why is this not succeeding? Or why has this just blown up in my face? And I don't know if it's the right thing to do. Should I persevere? I had a personal example earlier this year where I structured this new wellness offering into SMEs, and I took it into a new client in KZN. A lovely medium-sized client, spent a lot of time with them, kind of fleshing out the solution, a lot of consultation. They asked me to sit in a lot of their internal sessions to really get to grips with the culture and how they operate, and put a proposal in. They were very happy and approved the proposal. And then when we went to phase 1 of this, which needed courage from leadership, to say, I'm going to truly go and do the diagnostic and the introspection to understand where my people are at. And they had said that they were ready for it. But when the rubber hit the road and I was ready to click send and implement a organization-wide survey to get feedback on how everyone's state of health was, they pulled back. And that felt like, oh my goodness. It felt like a huge fail for me because I was so excited to have the first client on board to test this concept. And there it was the question, is this completely wrong? Our organization's not ready for this. Should I pivot this offering? And I had to sit with that. And I knew all it needed was perseverance, not necessarily with that client who didn't have the courage, but to persevere in maybe packaging this better for the next client and communicating better upfront how much of courage it's going to take to do this type of work and to have the reality check around whether they were ready for it. Am I answering your question, Clinton? Long answer there.
Yes, I think so. So you mentioned something earlier called, you referred to it as mental minimalism. So if we speak on the subject of pivoting, of deciding whether or not we should persevere or pivot, it requires a tremendous amount of mental clarity of your current situation, being able to separate what is fear-based, for example, what is reality and what is just, for the want of a better term, you bringing your own baggage and your own limiting self beliefs to a table the way it doesn't deserve to be, where you have full capacity, you have full capability to execute, but you're trying to talk yourself out of it at the very last minute. Speak to me about the importance of mental minimalism. What actually is it in your experience? And you've coined this phrase. And then how does that relate to any person when they are wanting to make big decisions in life?
So very much like, I think it was a big documentary on Netflix a couple of years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, on minimalism. And that was really in the physical space, physically clearing the clutter in your space,
Mm.
and how that has a ripple effect on your internal state of mind. I absolutely loved that documentary. And I loved, because I was telling you, I started nomading a bit in 2020. So I started physically clearing the clutter around me a lot and reducing that to a suitcase, because I wanted to play around this country and see it and experience it a bit more. So I did reduce my world to a suitcase, and I reduced my possessions to a couple of boxes. And that experience was so liberating. It was so liberating to hold each physical object and question, why is it here? Does it still need to be here? Is it functional? Is it emotional? Like, why is this thing still in my life? And if we take that same thinking and idea and methodology into the mental space. So first of all, there's so much that is coming at us externally. So much from the world that is coming in as messaging, signals, feedback, information, and in the mind in here gets completely cluttered. So it's having the awareness to decide how much of that stays in or how much of that I'm going to delete instantly. So it's not retained anywhere in this mind. And then there's the deeper practice for me, which is how much of what's going on in here comes up internally. So a situation happens, and my thinking around that situation is, oh, I shouldn't have done it that way. I'm such a failure. Why didn't I approach it like this? I should have sent the email 3 days earlier. I waited too long. What's that internal dialogue? And when that internal dialogue comes, what belief systems are all of those things linked to? And deeper than that, so what values, thoughts? So there's a huge, infinitely, intricately intelligent, interconnected system that's happening inside our beings. And when there's too much in there, then we almost operate on autopilot, we operate on survival mode, and we operate from a lot of clutter. So, Clinton, it's that feeling where you've slept, you get up in the morning and you get up exhausted. And you've slept, but you are exhausted. And the reason is there's so much mental rumination that's happening while you're sleeping. And sometimes it's okay. We'll have seasons of that in our lives, right? I just ran a huge project and I was prepared for it. It came to an head over 3 days. And even as I slept on those 3 nights, there were things that needed to happen. And I accepted that that season was there. But I've spent the last 48 hours coming out of that project re-regulating so that everything's back to calm internally. So number one, it's the awareness of what's happening internally. If there's noise, if there's clutter, if there's too much going on. And then number two, it's putting deep work and practices in place to clear that internal clutter so that when you operate in the world, when you interconnect, when you're solving problems, when you're building business, when you're taking care of your body, when you are in your job, that you're doing that from a different place of clarity and calm.
What does that deep work look like if you're trying to
You know,
declutter? What
yeah,
sort
I'm
of practices are we talking
always,
about here?
I don't want to ever be the voice of, I know it all and I've done it all and I got it all right. So let's first say that. And that there are certain
What
practices that
worked for you and what didn't work for you?
yes.
Let's use
So
your
certainly
experience.
what worked for me, definitely on a physical level, clearing the clutter helped me clear clutter on a mental level. So I think that's it's often an easier place to start without having to look inside. I journal. So when I'm trying to make sense, that murky feeling, why did that happen? Or could I have said that better? Or should I have said that better? I love bullet points. And if I can get things down in
Mm-hmm.
bullet, not for anyone to read or consume, but for me to make sense of it. This happened. Why did that happen? Should I have said that? He said that. She said that. This email landed. So I journal a lot of that stuff of just what actually happened and then how I feel about it and what I could have done better. I have done a lot of work on my values in life, and they've become like my North Star, my guiding light, personally and professionally. Who I let in, friends, family, colleagues, clients. It's a boundary actually for me in if it's not aligned. And I'm not saying I'm right and you wrong. You be you and do you. But if it doesn't align for me, then we're not going to work together. And that's okay. You'll find someone to work. So I think values
Yes.
was a big one for me. I love nature. So part of my move from Gauteng down to KZN was about being barefoot on the beach and breathing and walking and feeling the sun on my shoulders and just nature, the the infinite intelligence of nature. And if we can tap into how there's a divine order of how things unfold in nature, and we don't have to logically understand that it'll be a biologist or a scientist, but to just feel into it and tap into it and invite that intelligent unfolding system into my being, then that's cool for me. So I love that time in nature. Breathwork, yoga, meditation, chanting, I've got some foundationary daily practices that keep that inner clutter to the minimal for me. But having said that, I invite all our viewers and our listeners to find your unique system of what that is for you. And it's really about having a curious and an open mind and trying out different things.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. So far, many people, and I include myself in this category sometimes, is we get bogged down in not knowing where to start. Right, so we can do so many different things. Do I clean out the room? Do I clean out the office? Do I start journaling? Do I meditate? Do I practice mindfulness in nature? And you can go, do I exercise? Whatever. Do I read? Do I read for people who are religious? Reading the Bible or reading their religious scripture is a great way of meditation and being mindful and so on. So, where to start? I think the key there is the curiosity, being genuinely curious about if I do this, what happens? If I push this button, what happens? But having said that, one has to do it for long enough and consistently enough to be able to give it a chance to take root, right? It's like saying, okay, I'm going to try exercise and see if I do an exercise routine, then I want to see what happens to my mood. And then if I can concentrate at work better. And then you do one workout and you think, oh, yeah, I didn't really notice the difference. And then you don't go back and do it again. You've got to do it for 3 months, 4 months to establish some kind of routine and then to get the full benefit. Similarly, with meditation, the first time a person goes to meditate, their head's going to be all over the show. They're going to be thinking of a million and one different things. And they're just going to be like, oh, meditation is not for me. That's just not how I'm wired. But if you persevere with it, then you get a lot better at it and you can train the body and the mind to be more receptive to that sort of thing. So I would say definitely is to start with one thing and to be genuinely curious about what result that might produce. But action trumps everything. You can have the best plan in the world, and especially with ChatGPT and AI, you can get them to create this incredible mindfulness routine, and that will break it down for you day 1 through to day 7, and that's your weekly routine. If you don't get out and do the thing, nothing's going to happen. So to prioritize taking action over everything, first of all, being in nature, I really resonate with personally. There's a wonderful book. I can't remember the name of the authors now, Japanese authors, but it's forest bathing, Shinrin Yoku. Yeah, are you familiar with Shinrin Yoku?
Yeah, I'm familiar with forest bathing. Yeah.
Yeah, so Shinrin-yoku is the Japanese term, English translated forest bathing. So being mindful in nature, etc., etc. So I think that there's a lot of things that we know that we should do, and that I absolutely agree with you that all of those practices are great for decluttering. If I use myself as an example, there are things intellectually that I know I should do, even though I'm in the health industry, but there's phases in life where your intellectual knowing of what you should do and then the application maybe breaks down. So for me right now, I will tell you that I don't meditate as often as I should. I used to meditate quite a lot. In fact, I would meditate every day, more often than not, Monday through Fridays, and then Saturdays and Sundays would be a little loosey goosey, depending on what happens when we get up in the morning and so on. But my routine during the work week was definitely every morning meditation, and then I've sort of got out of that since we've had our boy, and then there's another one on the way. So then sleep becomes really an important thing. So
Yes.
I would prioritize trying to get 10 or 15 minutes extra sleep over doing some meditation. But now I know that I need to declutter, and I know that I have to get back to meditation at some stage. What are some practices that you know that you should be doing that perhaps you don't do and practice as consistently as you would like to?
Yeah, I think I'm such a morning person. So it's effortless for me. I've set a routine and it's
Mm,
very easy for me to tap into that every morning. I've been wanting to get some form of an evening routine in place to close off and consolidate the day well before releasing it in sleep, you know? So I've been wanting to try and get a evening meditation in. I've been wanting to try and get some form of a reflection exercise, something in at the end of each day. Cause I like to be intentional, you know? So that's something that I've really been wanting to do and I
mm,
haven't gotten around to. I think sometimes just also being in business and being in I think it's me still unwinding from my Gauteng energy, actually, where it's been so like go, 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 go for so many years, is also trying to slow that down intentionally more, you know? So I have that tendency to also sometimes keep going. If I can quickly shoot out this email, if I can quickly think about that solution and structure it, let me do it. So there's a little bit of that. Also, just the switching off when I need to switch off. I'm fairly good with my boundaries, and most of my clients know that about me. In fact, my clients reference me for that. Raksha, I'm sorry. I know I'm not supposed to write after 5, or I know you're not going to respond on the weekend, but I'm going to send the message anyway. And if you only get to it on Monday, get to it on Monday. I love that I'm being known more for that. And maybe it's in the boundaries are good with others, as in clients, etc. But maybe for myself, I could be a little bit better there in you can stop planning this solution or crafting that thing or researching this thing and just switch off into just being time now. So those are some of the things I think, Clinton.
mm.
Mm.
There's always the next thing on the to-do list. It's never complete, you know? And then when you think it's complete, then the next thing to do is to create a new to-do list because now you finished the old one. So it's this never-ending game, right? This infinite game, to quote Simon Sinek. You spoke about entrepreneurship. We've spoken about it, the ups and downs of it as well. And one of the things that strike me about entrepreneurship is the inability to switch off. Because when you are a salaried employee, you get structured hours for the most part. It's changed a bit, especially since COVID and that kind of thing. But for the most part, you go, you check in, you do your work, you get paid to do your work. And then once you go home, then there's little demand on you thereafter until you arrive to work the very next day. You can afford to switch off between when you get there and when you leave the following day. Entrepreneurship's not like that because there's always one thing that you can keep, there's always the next thing, right? What is an uncomfortable truth about entrepreneurship? Somebody's wanting to start their own business, they're wanting to experiment and maybe start a side hustle. We have been painted this picture of entrepreneurship as being trendy, the hustle, embracing the hustle, and the side hustle was a very popular thing 5 or 6 years ago. It's kind of fizzled out a bit now. I don't know if you've noticed that, but five,
Yeah.
6 years ago, it was like grow the side hustle, grow the side hustle, grow the side hustle. What are some thoughts that you have on some uncomfortable truths about entrepreneurship that people otherwise wouldn't know?
Mm. I've done such a lot of work. Well, I came out of it, a business incubator, and then went into acceleration programs. And then I was so thrilled when I became a service provider into it. So I got the opportunity to sit on both sides of the table as a beneficiary on a development program and now as a supplier into them. So probably 80% of my world is entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship development. And I think an uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to hear, when we think entrepreneurship, we think freedom. Freedom and liberation. And I
Mm-hmm.
think there's an aspect to it. But with that freedom comes so much more, like the like heavy responsibilities. Like there is nothing like entrepreneurship that holds up this mirror to you for you to really look at your insecurities, your weaknesses, the blind spots, the gaps that you need to work on. I think it often gets so romanticized. Own your own time, run your own business, do your thing. Um, there's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of hard work. But I think that hard work that we think about, that is systems, processes, policies, procedures, teams, unique offering, positioning, sustainability and consistency, all those businessy things that is there, that's the hard work. But there's that layer of hard work that is also the inner work. And I find that it's often the entrepreneurs who have done the inner work that truly succeed, because then that imposter doesn't come up, that uncomfortable, what you think is a truth doesn't come up. So that, I often used to get asked in all the entrepreneurship work that I do, what's the one thing that an entrepreneur needs more than anything? And I would say resilience. And you asked me the question around perseverance earlier. And I was thinking so much about these themes of resilience and perseverance. And I think as South Africans, especially, there's such a natural survival mentality in us. Like, just get on with it, just do it. Like, the electricity is cut, the water's cut, find the solution, get on with it. Or something's happened, the system's gone down, like, find a solution. I think there's so much of that. But as we start to take care more and more of the human being and the individual behind all of that, I feel like I don't like wearing that badge of honor anymore of resilience and perseverance. I need to like take deep care of this human being and this nervous system regulation. I can't be operating in constant fight or flight, panic mode. That what can I put in place to have some degree? We're never going to feel completely comfortable and at ease, but what can I put in place that helps me manage some of those risks so that I can just flow, operate from flow? Those like bucket loads also of emotional intelligence, like self-awareness, your discipline, your adaptability. So I think there's a lot more to it than what's positioned or sold as the sexy journey of entrepreneurship.
Mm. There's two things there. Something I've thought about quite a lot recently is you speak about resilience and you speak about perseverance, and there's a cost to everything, right? If you say yes to something, you by definition are saying no to something else, because there's always an opportunity cost. If I decide to come to the gym, then that's time that I could also have been spending doing something else. If I'm recording this podcast here with you, that's a time that I'm saying no to sales calls, following up with clients, etc., etc. But there's this definite element of martyrdom, I think, around the grind, and it's a very slippery slope, because it becomes a justification for this sort of unhealthy lifestyle, which is completely out of harmony, not balance, harmony. Because I don't believe that work-life balance is the biggest load of crap I've ever heard in my life. No, no disrespect to anybody who believes something something else like that. But if you want to be good at something, there has to be like an obsessive element to it, right? Otherwise, how do you get good at the thing? Now, there might be seasons where you become really disciplined about a certain thing in your life, and then naturally, by association, you don't pay as much attention to other areas. If you go an extended period of time in down one avenue, then you can't expect everything to be back there just how it was before you left. And there's this element of martyrdom where it's this noble cause which acts as a justification for dropping the ball in other areas of your life, be it your health, be it your relationships with your spouse, with your kids, with yourself. And this element of martyrdom almost justifies that decision, which is really just becomes a lack of intentionality about how you want to run your life. And I definitely feel that that is a big thing. And we get fed it in social media a lot, the grind, be the hardest worker in the room, da 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 da. But nobody talks about the cost of that, because there is a cost.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that you've alluded to there in particular as well. And I really think about it quite a lot now. I think also just because of the nature of my work and the hours that I work, etc. You wonder, what toll is this taking? And what are the implications of that in other areas of one's life? And it's too easy to just say, oh, well, I'm doing it because I'm trying to do this, this, and this. And there's that, like I say, that element of martyrdom. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah. So interesting. On my walk this morning, I was listening to Ariana Huffington interview Jay Shetty. And the podcast, the episode was called Developing or Being a Monk, a monk mindset, or the mindset of a monk, or something like that. And it was so interesting for me. So they didn't talk about it specifically, but that's obviously Ariana Huffington, right? And her whole story and how she collapsed at work, and her whole work was around sleep. The body of work that she started in the wellness space started from that concept of just needing sleep. And then she went into the 5 areas that you need to take care of to be well. And 100%. So it's so synchronistic that you bring it up, because her journey was that one of martyrdom, running the Huffington Post and having this big thing, running this and running that, and have all these big names, and then physically falling, hitting her head, and lying in a pool of blood on the floor because she was just going for so long, and then shifted her whole life as a result of that, and doesn't glorify that martyrdom anymore. So I don't know, Clint. I don't know if it's me getting older. I love getting older, and I love watching myself mature in this world. And for me, that's just a lack of maturity, that martyrdom. It's actually, if you've been in it long enough, and if you've developed the maturity and the courage to truly look at it, you will know that if you have millions and millions and millions of rands or dollars in your account, but you are at the risk of a heart attack or some severe health failure imminent, then what's the point? Like, is that true success? So I almost see that as an immaturity in the success game or the entrepreneurship game, if you don't have the ability to see the implications of that martyrdom in other areas of your life.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. I love the analogy of the mirror, by the way, that entrepreneurship is a mirror. I've never heard anybody describe it like that. And I think that's very, very true. It does. It's quite revealing in that sense. Let's go to one of my favorite questions. I love, love, love this question because I ask myself this often. And I never tell people that I'm asking them this. Have you changed your mind on anything recently? And if so, why?
Oh, changed my mind. So I used to be a black or white person. I used to be, it's this or it's that. It's good or it's bad. You do or you don't. Oh my goodness, Clinton. I was one of those completely inflexible. It's not good for you. Don't do it. This is good for you. You have to do it. Only do this. Only do that. Oh my goodness. I feel my shoulders tense as I even talk about it. It was definitely pre-COVID. It was a different phase in my life. And I think, when you're on one end of the spectrum, I was on the opposite end of bad, unhealthy, everything in extremes. And I needed to put myself in the opposite extreme before finding my way in between. I needed to go so good and inflexible that I found my way back into now living life in a gray area. So I never used to allow myself to change my mind. And I felt the inflexibility of that completely. I remember even my mother looking at me going, sure, you are so extreme. Aren't you at least going to have this or do this or go there? And I'm, no, it's not good. I'm not. And so it's been such a lovely journey in the last 4-5 years of my life of allowing myself to change my mind on lots of things. But because I'm so aligned with my values, knowing that it's not going to shake some inner core inside me if I change my mind on that thing. So I'm trying to think of a specific example. I think changing my mind on my story I told myself of business and success. Johannesburg is the place to be. That's where the networks are. That's the pace. That's how you got to do it. And then making the move down to KZN last year, being here for just over a year already. And then it took a while. So I've still been traveling up and down to Johannesburg, if not every month, every other month to see clients. And it's only really started to happen now in the last month or two when I went, no, Raksha, like there's something magical here in KZN as well. So let's put the time and effort in here to build the networks, to tap into the networks and to see where business is thriving here and how you can contribute towards that. So that's an area where I've changed my mind recently.
I love that. Yeah, I really like that a lot. What are you excited about? We in the second half of the year already, 2026. What's got you excited for the rest of the year?
What got me excited is that in this exact changing my mind around KZN, a lot of my energy has shifted around it. And I've just been, meeting people like you, just meeting phenomenal people in KZN doing great things. So I'm really excited about that. I've got some very intentional one-on-one connects coming up in my calendar over the next 6 to 8 weeks with phenomenal people in KZN doing great things. So that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about connecting at a human level, hearing and being inspired by the phenomenal things people are doing in this province, and then looking at how I can support that and contribute. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Wonderful. Raksha, where can people find you if they want to get in touch? They've heard your story, they're keen, and they want to meet you and they want to see what you can offer. Where can they find you?
Cool. So at my core, I am and will always be a brand strategist. And the foundations of building a successful brand in this world are that they have to be memorable, meaningful, and consistent. So on the line of being consistent, you can find me at name, surname everywhere. So it's www.rakshamahabeer.com. It's raksha@rakshamahabeer.com. And I'm Raksha Mahabeer on LinkedIn. So that's where you can find me.
Easy game. I'll put the links in the show notes, everybody. Raksha, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And as somebody who's born and bred in KZN, it's lovely to have a Joe Burger down and has made the permanent trip down the N3 to the land of what would I call us? It used to be the land of load shedding and flooding, but now we've seemed to have done away with both those things.
Salty
There's
haired
good
sand.
coffee here. Maybe the land. I like that. Yes, salty hair and sandy toes. Wonderful. What a nice way to finish. Thank you so much for being on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Clinton. I've loved chatting to you.
Hey everyone. A huge amount of work and effort goes into producing this podcast, whether it's from the research going into the episode, whether it's finding the guests coming to the location or them being online, to producing the content, edited and putting it in a format that is conducive to your ears and your eyes. And it goes a really, really long way if you can just do me one thing in return for this free content: share it. Share it far and wide, and if you find an episode useful, send it to someone who might feel the same way. That's all. Thanks a million. See you next week.